it's another story of legend in New York politics about the planes being on the tarmac at the Albany County Airport, ready to take Cuomo to New Hampshire to announce that he was running for president, and just waiting and waiting, and the planes never took off. You talked to Steve Kornacki, who was an analyst with MSNBC. He told you in the documentary that he thinks if Cuomo had gone to New Hampshire and entered that race, that he would have not only beaten Bill Clinton and Tsongas and won in '92, but that he would have gone on.
Yeah, and we've seen the economy, still hadn't rebounded at that point in the U.S. And that's one of the draws of this film is the question of what if, a guy who was up 15 to 20 points, why wouldn't he enter the race? And then soon after that, as Kornacki says in the film, the Jennifer Flowers accusation came out. Bill Clinton talked about mafioso regarding Mario Cuomo, so that really could possibly have hurt him publicly and kind of paved the way, I guess, for Mario Cuomo. And the whole there was a Liberal Party chair here in New York at the time who said, "Listen, I know people in the Bush administration. The last person they want to debate on a stage is Mario Cuomo."
And Kornacki believes that Cuomo would have defeated Bush.
He did. He does. He thinks there never would have been a Bill Clinton. There never would have been a Hillary Clinton. Again, that question of what if is so fascinating.
Does his son Andrew talk about the what ifs there, or that whether he thinks that would have been the case, and whether his father would have won the presidency, and what type of president he would have been?
No, he totally intentionally shies away from that. He says, listen, my father didn't want to run, so there's no point in speculating about what kind of a president he would have been because he didn't want to run.
All this incredible footage, all these incredible moments in Mario Cuomo's career, a documentary producer always has the trouble of having to decide what to leave on the cutting room floor. Did you have a tough decision about stories that had to be edited
agony,
out?
Tom. Total agony. I mean, the footage that we have and the interviews that we had were just tremendous. And a lot of them got cut at the last minute when Andrew Cuomo came in, because I had to, really kind of had to reconfigure everything. But some great footage. But we don't even get into a lot of the great legislation, the legislative debates between, like, the seatbelt law. That's one of his pieces of legislation that he's known for the most. That was very controversial back in the day. Senator Hugh Farley from the Schenectady area was on the floor of the Senate saying they're tampering with my rights. And nowadays that might seem laughable, but that was a big deal back then. They closed a nuclear power plant in Long Island, Shoreham. That was a big deal. So it's a lot of that nitty gritty I would have liked to have gotten into, but the guy had so many benchmarks in his 12 years that made that very difficult.
And just again, though, you had such wonderful snippets all along the way, thanks to the archives from Inside Albany. His debate with Lou Lehrman, there were just so much captured on video that I bet a lot of people had never seen.
And that debate with Lou Lehrman in 1982, the Republican nominee for governor, for the first 20 minutes of that debate, you didn't hear anything from the panelists or the moderator. They just went at each other in a very respectful way. They both gave each other the amount of time that was fair. Boy, it's something you don't see nowadays. And we moderate debates, and it makes folks like us jealous that candidates back then would agree to something like that. It was great. It was a great part of the democratic process to see that.
And I have to ask you about the title, Poetry and Prose.
That's his famous quote: "You campaign in poetry and you govern in prose." And a lot of people say there was few people better at the poetry than Mario Cuomo. The prose is where he had more difficult. And even Andrew told me that his father didn't really like to be a manager all that much. He liked to kind of get out in front of legislation and be kind of the voice, the liberal voice for the messages that he wanted to get across. But when it came to the managing, the prose, that wasn't his forte. And if you combine, Tom, the poetry of Mario Cuomo and the prose of his son, Andrew Cuomo, that's one formidable candidate, because that's Andrew Cuomo's forte is the prose and the arm twisting and kind of galvanizing people from both the right and the left. Certainly in his first couple years. He's having more difficult now. But you can argue Andrew Cuomo's first 6 months, when he got same-sex marriage, a property tax cap, among other things, were really bigger pieces of legislation that his father ever had in 12 years.
And for a younger generation, they can now see where he got it.
That's right.
Matt Ryan, thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks, Tom.